Good morning. I'm Sarah Zuber with Verve Counseling. I'm a mental health therapist in Portland, Oregon, and I'm sharing some tips on how to deal with anxiety in these uncertain times of the pandemic. Today, I want to talk more about feeling overwhelmed, especially it's the holidays here, and I think that's a common way to feel in any normal year of as the holidays are upon us. We have more tasks and responsibilities and activities and lots of fun things, but that can also lead to a stacking up of feeling overwhelmed. And particularly during a pandemic, when we're doing all the things from home and doing all the things, work and juggling with online school if you have kids, and trying to figure out ways to stay connected in different ways with our loved ones, and physical activity, not in a gym, and all of the things. So let me share a framework with you, please. That is from cognitive behavioral therapy, and I will pull up a PowerPoint now, and we'll walk through some concepts I hope will be helpful. Okay, so I'm starting here with, so this is sort of a basic of cognitive behavioral therapy, kind of an overview of the lens. So cognitive behavioral therapy looks at how our thoughts, our behaviors, and our emotions are interconnected. So how our feelings impact what we do and what we avoid doing, how our thoughts impact our feelings, how it all is interconnected and one affects the other, and how intervening on each of these can help with the others. Okay, so that's just a basic overview. Moving on. Okay, do you hear that? I'm trying to advance. There we go. So here's another bread and butter of cognitive behavioral therapy. This is the ABC model. I've talked about this in previous videos. I'm going to go through a particular overwhelm event, though. I like to call this dissecting. So the activating event, ABC, they all stand for something. A is activating event, or the situation, or the triggering event. Activating event, so it's just what happened. B is your beliefs about what happened. What is your interpretation? What are the automatic thoughts that you're having? What's going through your mind? Automatic thoughts, because it takes no effort. This is just what your brain does, how your brain makes sense of what just happened, is happening. And then finally, C stands for consequences, and this is referring to how you feel and what you do or what you avoid doing, as is sometimes the case with anxiety. Emotions and behaviors, the consequences. So it happens in this order. We go through this sequence many times in a day. Something happens, we have an interpretation about what we believe that to mean about us, about others, the situation. And then we have a feeling about that resulting from whatever our interpretation is. And our feelings have action urges. So that is the behaviors. So it is the middle part, the B, that determines the C, how we feel and what we do or don't do. Often it's easy to identify the A and the C. Something happened, this is how I felt and what I did. But really, the B happens in there, and it's easy for us to go right past it because our brains just do it. It's automatic. But if we can get down to identifying what's going through our mind and what thought or belief is happening for us, then we can examine that and see if that is a helpful way of thinking, or is it self-defeating? And if it's self-defeating, we might challenge those beliefs, or at least think of other possibilities that are also true about the situation that is more helpful for our mood. Let's go through the example of something that might trigger the C of overwhelm. Okay, tasks and responsibilities piling up. It's Christmas Eve here. This might be, for many of us, a crunch time of, for example, I personally have not one present wrapped. So you might be thinking like, oh, I have these food to prepare. You may or may not have like planned events with loved ones, cleaning the house, or getting something, if you're meeting outside, like getting that set up, or, you know, do we have the outfits we want to wear are washed and the masks we want to wear are washed. You know, still a work day. Things might be piling up, feeling like okay, so tasks and responsibilities piling up. That's the A, that's the situation. B, okay, some thoughts that might be going through your head are, I'll never get it all done. The to-do list is just too long. If I don't get it done, something bad will happen. Well, somebody's going to be disappointed. Like, you know, I'm going to fail. Something bad will happen. Like, what would be the bad thing? Christmas is terrible. Somebody's disappointed. Somebody's going to be crying. We won't have food to eat. I'll burn it. Whatever it is. Bad things will happen. Insert bad thing. I'm bad at prioritizing, and that will always be true. I have a bunch of tasks and responsibilities piling up. I don't even know where to start. I'm bad at that. Others are negatively evaluating me, like judging. There's judgment coming from my parents or my spouse. In general, I suck because of all these other things. I just suck. I just suck. Feelings might be panic, like, oh my gosh, panic, overwhelm, shame. And the behaviors might be like frozen or avoidance, avoiding even starting one thing. So we all have thinking styles. We all have 2 or 3 that are our go-to. These patterns of thinking are helpful to identify. And these are not helpful. These are self-defeating. These are also known as cognitive distortions. So one that's common in anxiety is catastrophizing. So expecting disaster, hearing about a situation and start imagining the worst possible outcome. Another is personalization, believing that what others say and do is a direct reaction to you, that it's about you, something you did or didn't do. Overgeneralization, believing that because something happened once or even a few times, it will always happen. Filtering is selectively paying attention to the negative and disregarding the positive, over-focusing on the negative. Mind reading is believing that you know another person's thoughts, feelings, or intentions when they haven't actually stated them. Global labeling is characterizing 1 or 2 qualities as a global judgment about yourself or others. So it's like taking a broad paint stroke based on incidences, making it about your character. Okay, so keeping those in mind, let's go back to those automatic thoughts and categorize them. Okay, tasks and responsibilities piling up. I'll never get it all done. That's catastrophizing, imagining a worst case scenario. If I don't get it done, then something bad will happen. Also catastrophizing. I'm bad at prioritizing, and that will always be true. Remember, that's taking up some isolated incidences and predicting that will always be true. Overgeneralization. Others are negatively evaluating me. You're guessing. That's mind reading. Unless they say it out loud. And then the general I suck, that's global labeling. And that is that painting the broad paint stroke about your character, what that means about your character. And then of course you'd have those reactions. So labeling those cognitive distortions will help you then counteract, figure out the strategy for how to challenge those beliefs. So let's brainstorm some thought replacements. Okay, so the automatic thought, I'll never get it all done. Catastrophizing, remember. Our thought replacement might be, I may or may not get it all done, but I can get some done. If I don't get it done, then something bad will happen, catastrophizing. If something bad does happen, I can deal with it. And listen, the bottom line is, what's the worst that can happen? There's no one in danger, and that's the most important thing. I'm bad at prioritizing, and that will always be true. So that is kind of a fixed mindset. Prioritizing does not come easily to me, but I can build the skill. Others are negatively evaluating me in a mind reading. I can't read minds, and most likely people aren't thinking about me. That's true like 80% of the time. I suck. Pardon my inability to line this up. This is hard for me, but I'm still awesome. Like, this is just one piece of the picture that is me. Okay, so going back to this, listen, this is an advanced skill. So the thought replacement piece is particularly advanced. You will not, it would be reasonable to expect that you won't think of this in the moment. Going through all of this, this dissection has value doing it later, and you might see some familiar things as we go through this now, but there's value in going through and dissecting this later when you're feeling more calm, because the more you practice a different way of thinking, the more likely you are to access it when you need it. So you probably, like all of us, have 2 or 3 go-to cognitive distortions. Knowing that, just notice when you feel emotionally reactive. What's under that? What am I believing about what's happening? What am I believing about myself and others in this moment? Is it one of my go-to cognitive distortions? If so, then I know I need to counteract with some of these sort of ways to counteract them. Consider other possibilities. Sometimes I'll say, like, come up with, if you can identify in the moment what the automatic thought is, come up with 3 other possibilities that are not negative. And that is a hard thing to do, but you will. The more you practice, like anything, playing the cello, the more you practice, the more skilled you'll get, and the more likely you'll be able to access these skills when you need them. Going on to how you might manage that to-do list. This is something I learned about many, many years ago in undergrad. This is like a project management type of approach called the Eisenhower matrix. And it is indeed Dwight D. Eisenhower. It comes from Dwight D. Eisenhower. Okay, that is kind of jumping, isn't it? His quote here: I have 2 kinds of problems, the urgent and the important. The urgent are not important, and the important are never urgent. So this matrix can be a way of organizing everything you have to do. So the first step would be to write down on your paper or a note. I like to use the notes function on my phone as sort of an ongoing to-do list. And then take those projects, those tasks, everything that you need to do, and put them in these 4 quadrants. So the things that are urgent and important, do them. Those are the ones you do first. The ones that are urgent but not important, delegate. So for me, that's things like scrubbing the toilet and washing the bathroom sink. I put my kids on that. So it needs to be done in my mind. To me, it's an urgent situation, at least weekly, but it's not as important that it gets a great job every time. So if I'm overwhelmed and I have a lot on my to-do list, I'll send those kids on tasks like this. Mine are 5 and 7. So yeah, they don't do a spot on job, but good enough. If it's not urgent, but it is important, that's something you schedule. So you decide when. Some people do like within the next 2 weeks, within the month, within 6 months, within the year. And you can even categorize that on your to-do list in your notes function. Schedule it, and then you can let it go and know that it is scheduled. Put it on your calendar if you want. And then not important and not urgent, consider just dumping those. Did they even really need to be on your to-do list? That might rise in importance later, and in that case, put it back on your list. But delete those things that are not really important and not urgent. So here's a framework that you can try to use with prioritizing your to-do list. Do I have anything else? I can't remember if there's another slide. No. Okay. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found a nugget of something that might be helpful, or maybe even a skill that you already had that just reminded you about. And always take a deep breath and happy holidays.